The buzz about this movie was tremendous. We heard rumors that James Caan of Godfather fame was going to star in a heavy action movie, but we didn't know that the great Norman Jewison would put it all together, and he turned into obviously the Robert Wise of Canada. Now, Rollerball, if you haven't seen it before, get ready for a ride in science fiction history. Now, it came out in 1975, a science fiction sports film, directed and produced by Norman Jewison. Starred James Caan, the great John Houseman, Maud Adams, John Beck, Moses Gunn, and Ralph Richardson. The screenplay, written by William Harrison, adapted his own short story, Rollerball Murder, which had first appeared in a September 73 issue of Esquire. Of course, Rollerball was a sport that hasn't been played pretty much since, but was invented for this movie. Now, largely American cast, was released by UA and was produced in London and in Munich at some of the Olympic venues from 72. Now, in 2018, Johnson E. is the team captain and veteran star of the Houston Rollerball team. Mr. Bartholomew, chairman of the Energy Corporation and team sponsor, offers Jonathan a lavish retirement package if he will announce his retirement during an upcoming television special detailing his career. Jonathan refuses and requests to see his former wife Ella, who had been taken from him some years earlier by a corporate executive who wanted her for himself. Jonathan goes to a library where he finds that all books have been digitized and edited to suit the corporations and are now stored on supercomputers at large protected corporate locations. Jonathan's friend and former coach Cletus, now an energy executive, warns him the executive committee is afraid of him, though he cannot find out why. Now, Rollerball, the rules always change. It soon degrades into senseless violence, as the rules are permanently changed to force Jonathan out. The semifinal match of Houston versus Tokyo is played with no penalties and limited substitutions, in the hope Jonathan will be injured or forced out before the title match. The brutality of the match kills several players and leaves Jonathan's best friend and teammate Moon Pie in a coma, of course, by Mr. Beck. Now, in a teleconference later on, the executive committee decided that the next game will be played with no penalties, no substitutions, and no time limit, in the hope that Jonathan would be killed during the contest. Johnson's popularity and longevity as a player threatened the underlying agenda of Rollerball to demonstrate the futility of individualism. Now, when Jonathan makes his way to Geneva to access the world repository of all human knowledge, a central supercomputer known as Zero, only to find his memory corrupted before he can ask for something. Afterwards, Johnson receives a visit from his former wife Ella, who has been sent to convince him to retire and to make it clear that the coming game will be to the death. Johnson realizes his wife's visit was set up by the executives and erases a long-cherished moment with the two of them stating, "I just wanted you on my side." Johnson decides that despite the dangers, he will play in the Houston versus New York championship game. Now, the final match eventually evolves into a gladiatorial fight. Johnson is soon the only player left on the track for Houston, while a skater and a biker remain from New York. After a violent struggle in front of Mr. Bartholomew's box, Johnson kills the skater and takes the ball. The biker charges, and Johnson knocks him off the bike and pins the biker down. He raises the ball over his head, then pauses. Refusing to kill his fallen opponent, Johnson gets to his feet and makes his way to the goal, slamming the ball home and scoring the game's only point. After a bloody match in which all his teammates are killed or injured, but that he miraculously and conveniently survives, Johnson takes a victory lap as the crowd chants his name, first softly, then louder. Jonathan, Jonathan, Jonathan. And finally as a roar, while Mr. Bartholomew hastily exits the stands. Now again, James Caan plays Johnson E. Pamela Hensley actually shows up as Mackie. And Robert Ito has a cameo appearance, our great Canadian actor from Quincy. Now, Rollerball's arena sequences were shot at a Rudy Selmayr Halle in Munich. The hall was selected because it was the only sports arena in the world with a near circular profile, which the production could take over and redress for shooting. Now, they developed the rollerball game. Basically, it's roller derby with motorcycles, and the ball has to go around and put it in like a counting area, like not say a net, but close enough. The then new BMW headquarters and museum buildings in Munich appear as the headquarters buildings of the Energy Corporation at Olympia Park, Munich. Scenes were also filmed at Folly Station near Southampton. The sequence where John Denis visits Geneva to consult with Zero, the supercomputer concerning corporate decisions, features exterior shots of the Palace of Nations. So this show is basically a movie. It's a slow build because we really don't know why they're competing in this way. Not too many background is given, but society is degraded in such a way that rollerball is the only sport left. Now, recognizing their contribution to the many crucial action sequences, Rollerball was the first Hollywood production to give screen credit to its stunt performers. The film was shot in 35 with a 1.85 aspect ratio, but it was released in some theaters in 70 millimeter with a 2:1 aspect ratio. That's how I saw it. It looks great at the drive-in. The game of Rollerball was so realistic that the cast, extras, and stunt personnel played between takes on a set. At the time of the film's release, Howard Cosell interviewed Norman Jewison and James Caan on Wild World of Sports, showing clips from the film with the two of them explaining the rules of the game. Audiences who saw the film so loved the action of the game that Jewison was contacted multiple times by promoters requesting that the rights of the game be sold so that a real rollerball leagues might be formed. Jewison was outraged as the entire point of the movie was to show the sickness and insanity of contact sports and their allure. English pro wrestler Mark Rocco was the stuntman for the film. He used a rollerball name as his nickname. Now, beautiful score. Bach, Toccata, and Fuge, D minor, is performed on organ by Simon Preston during the opening title sequence and again at the final scene, bookending the film. Adagio in G minor by Albinoni Giazzotto and a Largo movement from Shostakovich's Symphonies No. 5 are also used to establish tone, mood, and atmosphere for certain scenes in the film. The classical music was performed by the London Symphony Orchestra, conducted by the great Andre Previn, who also wrote the executive party music for the film and the corporate anthems performed before certain matches. Now, the film earned $6.2 million in theatrical rentals at the North American box office, pretty strong for the time. Although it wasn't a big hit, there was enough of what you call a curiosity to get people to see the movie. Now, the international box office was quite strong. I think it made almost $25 million internationally. Now, as we go along in the movie's history, the critical response was mixed. Vincent Canby of the New York Times was unimpressed. He said that Rollerball isn't a satire, it's not funny at all, and not being funny, it becomes instead frivolous. Gene Siskel gave it 2 stars out of 4, while James Monaco wrote that Rollerball, like most paranoid fantasies, offers no hope. If James can't beat the system, who can? It can. TV Guide gave 3 out of 4 stars, and Filmark said the film obviously launched the dystopian sports movie genre, and a series of rip-offs would follow later, including Death Race 2000. Most of which, to be frank, were a lot more fun than Rollerball, which could have stood a little less important and a little trashier. Now, Rotten Tomatoes, the film averages 67% based on its 36 credits. Critics with an average rating of 6.2 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, in Rollerball, social commentary collides with high-speed action, and the audience is the winner. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 56 out of 100 based on reviews of 11 critics, indicating mixed or average. Now, in 1977, Caan himself rated the film 8 out of 10, saying he couldn't do much with the character. This is true. It was straight ahead. Now, the sequel to, not sequel, but the remake came out in 2002. Better not to talk about it because it's terrible. Now, for me, as a young person seeing Rollerball, and I saw it at the movie theaters, once at the drive-in, once within the theater, and it's a pure drive-in movie. But really, really works out for me. It had aspects of hockey, it had aspects of indoor soccer, it had aspects of what he called predetermined roller derby. But the overall impression I got from this, John Houseman plays a cruel character after playing sympathetic characters for years. James Caan is at his peak here. The poor man's Burt Reynolds. Anybody argues with me with that, he was kind of playing, it would have been much, much more perfect with Burt Reynolds, but maybe couldn't get the hair. But John Beck, a good number 2, and Moses Gunn, very underrated in the show. But the whole thing is where the sports get so large that the plan for the sport to be a placater is removed. And there was various key NBC announcers and that were featured in the show. And the announcing was like sort of like a hockey game, so it's quite interesting. So for me, Rollerball, 3 stars out of 4. Let me know what you think. Give us a like, comment, subscribe, and share. And don't forget, who scores last wins.